Hello everyone, welcome to today's story. A ring in his pocket, a dinner table set with candles, a heart full of love, ready to kneel. But just hours before the proposal, she collapses on the street, unconscious, alone, and carrying a child she doesn't even know exists. In that fragile moment, James discovers two truths. Diep is pregnant, and she's battling a fatal illness. She doesn't know, and he can't bring himself to tell her. Will he have the courage to speak, or will silence protect her heart a little longer? What do you do when love stands at a crossroads between truth and mercy? This is not a story of shouting or breaking. It's a story of staying, of watching, of holding on through the quiet. So stay with us until the very end, because sometimes the most life-changing moments are the ones spoken only in silence. And if this story touches you, please like, share, and subscribe to support our journey. We're on our way to 1,000 followers, and with your help, we're almost there. Let the story begin. The morning light spilled softly over the wet cobblestones as Diep arranged her bags of pickled cassava on the old wooden cart. Her hands, calloused but gentle, moved with a kind of quiet rhythm. The rhythm of someone who had long grown used to earning life from silence and survival. She called out shyly to passers-by, her voice as hushed as the morning fog. No family waited for her at home, no roof truly her own, just a borrowed corner, a life cobbled together from effort and endurance. Far away, in another world of tailored suits and glass offices, James stared at a small velvet box resting in his palm. Inside it, a ring he had kept hidden for months, a promise waiting to be spoken. His heart, usually unfazed by negotiations and deals, now raced with a tenderness foreign and unfamiliar. He dialed the restaurant with the calm tone of a businessman, but behind it was a boy about to ask the most fragile question of his life. Later that day, he sat across from his mother, or rather the woman who had raised him as her own. His voice trembled slightly when he spoke of Diep, of her strength, her solitude, her sweetness. He confessed his love like one would offer a fragile flower, hoping, fearing, believing. And to his surprise, his mother smiled. Not the stiff smile of polite approval, but the warm, understanding smile of someone who once gave her heart away, against reason. The wind rustled the curtains that evening. Somewhere in the city, two hearts were preparing, one to ask, one still unaware, both walking gently toward a crossroad they could not yet name. James stood at the edge of the room, watching the restaurant staff place white roses along the candlelit table. The VIP room was dim and intimate, flickering with golden light. Everything was ready, the ring tucked inside his coat, a small cake waiting in the corner, balloons floating near the ceiling like soft wishes. Time, for once, seemed gentle. He rehearsed in his mind how he would kneel, how he would ask, how she might cry. And yet, somewhere else, Diep was walking through the sun-bleached alleyways, her baskets nearly empty. Sweat clung to her temples. Her steps had slowed these last few days, though she told herself it was just the heat. She smiled politely at a customer, passed a child a bag of sour greens, and clutched the coins like they were petals blown into her hand by fate. She had no idea what was waiting tonight, no idea about the roses, or the ring, or the man who had rearranged his life to fit her inside it. But deep in her chest, there was an ache. Not pain exactly, but a kind of heaviness that made her pause every now and then, holding on to a wall or the edge of her cart. Still, she pressed forward. A woman who had survived without love for so long didn't dare imagine too much. Her happiness was quiet, a bowl of warm rice, a breeze on her back, a memory not yet broken. And while James checked his watch with anticipation, Dieppe looked to the sky, whispered a short prayer to no one in particular, and told herself, just a little longer. The road was nearly empty when Dieppe felt the world tilt beneath her feet. Her fingers, still curled around a bag of leftover vegetables, loosened as her knees gave way. The sun above was no longer warm. It was heavy, like a hand pressing down on her chest. She tried to call out, but the sound stayed in her throat. Then, silence. A passerby cried out, rushing to her side. Others gathered. Someone checked her pulse. A phone buzzed in her worn pocket. A kind stranger picked it up, searching through contacts until a single name, James, appeared. A call was made, urgent, shaken. James's voice on the other end faltered before hardening into action. He drove like the wind was chasing him. The velvet ring box still in his pocket, unopened. The restaurant would wait. Love would wait. Life, maybe, would not. At the hospital, chaos met him. Nurses asked for family. He signed where she could not. His hands trembled as they took her away. Her small frame looked even smaller on the gurney, swallowed in sterile white sheets. His voice cracked as he called her name, but Dieppe didn't stir. In the waiting room, time fractured. Seconds bled into hours. Memories spilled into prayers. The future he imagined, one with her name beside his, flickered like a candle in wind. And when the doctor finally stepped out, James stood, bracing himself not just for news, but for a truth that might tear everything apart. "She's stable for now," the doctor began, his eyes avoiding James's. "But she's pregnant, and there's something more." He hesitated, then continued. "We've found signs of a serious underlying condition. We'll need further tests to confirm, but it could be life-threatening, especially during pregnancy." James stood frozen. The words did not fully settle at first. They echoed, circled, then struck like thunder behind his ribs. Pregnant. Sick. A fragile life growing inside the woman he loved, while her own hung in balance. He clenched his jaw, as though it might hold together the crumbling certainty inside him. He stepped into her room slowly. Dieppe was awake, pale against the white hospital linen. She turned toward him with a weary smile, her voice hoarse. "I must have fainted again," she whispered. "Probably the heat." James forced a nod. He sat by her side, holding her hand gently, like it might break. "You scared me," he said softly. "You need to rest now, that's all." He could have told her the truth, right there. But how do you shatter someone's hope when it's the only thing keeping them together? How do you speak of life growing while death watches nearby? So he said nothing. Let silence settle between them like a heavy snowfall, muffling fear, softening pain. As she closed her eyes, trusting him without question, James felt the weight of two futures pressing on his chest. One where she knows, and one where she never finds out. And neither, he feared, would lead to peace. The days that followed moved like rain over glass, slow, silent, unrelenting. James remained by Dieppe's side, never straying far. He fed her warm porridge, peeled fruit she barely touched, adjusted the blanket when her sleep turned restless. He watched over her like someone guarding a flame in the wind, fiercely, tenderly. Deep smiled more than she should have. She believed she was simply exhausted, that with a few days of rest, she'd return to her garden, her ducks, her baskets of cassava greens. Her dreams were small but steady. A life beside James, a roof they could call theirs. She didn't know her body held two fragile hearts, both beating in quiet defiance. James kept the secret buried. He listened as she spoke of names for future children, of recipes she would cook once strong again. He smiled, nodded, but each word was a quiet cut. Every moment of tenderness turned bittersweet, a lullaby he wasn't sure they'd ever finish singing. Sometimes at night, he would watch her sleep and whisper apologies into the dark. He wanted to shield her from every pain, every truth, but love, he realized, was not about hiding storms. It was about standing still when they came. He hadn't proposed yet. The ring still waited in his coat pocket, not because the love had faded, but because now the question came with too much weight. Not just, will you marry me, but will you fight with me, even when we may lose? And he didn't know if he had the right to ask that of her. Not yet. James stood by the hospital window. The city sprawled beneath him like a map he could no longer read. In his hand, the velvet ring box felt heavier than gold. He opened it, stared at the small circle of promise inside, now less a symbol of joy and more a question that bruised his chest. Behind him, Diep laughed softly in her sleep. She had dreamed of ducks, she'd said earlier, of warm rice and the smell of tamarind soup. James had smiled, masking the ache beneath his ribs. How do you cradle someone's dream when you know it may soon slip through their fingers? Each time he thought of telling her the truth, something inside him recoiled. He imagined the light in her eyes dimming, the fragile threads of hope unraveling in her hands. Could he do that to her? Could he watch her fall apart and still hold her together? But silence was its own cruelty. The doctor's words echoed like a quiet drum. She needs to know. She needs time to decide. Yet James hesitated, not because he didn't trust her strength, but because he feared what the truth would take from her. From them. He paced the room, stopped, sat beside her, then stood again. He was a man who negotiated million-dollar deals with calm precision. But in this moment, he was just a boy who didn't know how to break a heart. He loved too much. When Diep stirred and reached for his hand, James gripped it tightly, not to reassure her, but to remind himself that love was still real, even when the future wasn't. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the hospital floor as Diep sat upright, sipping warm broth from a porcelain bowl. Her cheeks had gained back a hint of color, and her voice carried a hopeful lilt when she spoke. "I think I'll be discharged soon," she said, her eyes drifting towards the window. "I miss the sound of the ducks." James smiled, though his heart ached. He nodded gently. "Soon," he whispered. "Very soon." He hadn't told her. Not yet. The words lived in his throat like stones, heavy, unmoving, and yet each day he stayed. He loved her more. Not just for her resilience or quiet beauty, but for the way she believed in life, in second chances, in him. That evening, as the lights dimmed and nurses moved like shadows in the corridor, James sat beside her bed, their fingers loosely intertwined. She had fallen asleep mid-sentence, her breath soft, steady. He looked at her, the curve of her lashes, the flutter of her pulse, and wondered how something so delicate could carry so much weight. He reached into his coat and took out the ring. For a moment, he simply held it, no longer as a question, but as a vow, quiet and wordless. He kissed her knuckles gently, laid the ring beside her on the pillow, and whispered, "Whatever comes, I'll be here." Sometimes the greatest promises are made without sound. And sometimes love doesn't ask for forever, only the courage to stay even as the sun begins to set.
James, một CEO trẻ tuổi, chuẩn bị cầu hôn Diệp. Cô gái mồ côi, làm nghề bán rau, sống giản dị nhưng đầy nghị lực. Khi mọi thứ để sẵn sàng, Diệp bắt đầu ngất xỉu giữa đường và được đưa vào bệnh viện. Tại đây, si màn hòn biết cô đang mang thai và mắc căn bệnh hiểm nghèo. Diệp không hề hay biết. Cô chỉ nghĩ mình kiệt sức vì công việc. James chọn giấu nhiệm sự thật, lặng lẽ chăm sóc cô từng ngày. Trong khoảnh khắc tình yêu, nỗi đau đan xen, anh đứng giữa sự lựa chọn, nói ra, giữ lại, cầu hôn hay im lặng. Câu chuyện kết thúc bằng lời hứa không thành tiếng rằng anh sẽ ở lại dù bình minh có đến hay không.